Welcome back to Killer Fun, where we explore the intersection of crime and entertainment every other week. I'm Christy.
And I'm Jackie.
Today, it's the beginning of Murdaugh month for
Murdaugh
us.
month.
We're talking about the Murdaugh Murders, a Southern scandal. Season 1, Episode 1, Where is Mallory? When binge drinking and patriarchy collide, evidently with the supports of a bridge, and ends in tragedy.
Oh, God, that's it. You nailed it. This is I was okay. Well, let me say a confession. Confession a bit. I was equally enthralled and a little bored.
Okay.
So my boredom comes with a little bit of the way that they stretched this out during the first episode.
Okay.
But they were actually building a tension because I was also very interested. But I fell asleep at some point. So I don't know how I feel about the actual show itself. My critique is a little off, but I'm so interested in this whole thing that I'm
this isn't even the part that most people are interested in.
Exactly.
But it's so foundational to things that came after.
It's so creepy. It's creepy.
How much have you watched? Just the first episode?
Oh, just the first episode.
Okay.
Because I realized how little I knew.
Okay.
And so now I'm taking it slow.
Okay.
Because I'm realizing there's a lot more to this story than I realized.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot more. I mean, the next episode gets into the things that people tend to be a little more interested in.
Yeah. But I'm very interested in this. Where is Mallory?
Yeah.
I'm super interested in that.
Poor baby.
How, and yet, but hearing the interviews of the friends and their just absolute heartbreak is just.
I know. Yeah.
This is me the whole time.
I had thoughts. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you some
Tell
thoughts
me your thoughts.
In a little bit. First, there is no cast. It's all people who are involved in it, doing interviews. So I'm not going to no cast.
No.
But I'm going to recap it real quick.
Oh, please do. Oh.
So the Murdaugh family is rich and powerful and connected to more mysterious deaths than anyone I personally know.
I mean, anything I've ever heard.
I mean, if there are people connected to mysterious deaths that I know in real life, I don't know about it.
I don't know about it, but the amount that they have, I would have considered them to be more I don't know, some sort of nefarious,
Yeah, crime ring sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Listeners, fill in the blank. This is our audible fill in the blank.
That's right. I don't want to say anything that's, I can't back up with proof because that's slander.
Yes.
So I'm not going to do that.
But we are going to leave a blank.
Yeah. Kids with tons of freedom, i.e., very little supervision, and what basically amounts to limitless amounts of money.
Yeah.
Make a series of really poor decisions. And these poor decisions, at least for a while, have basically no consequences because the powerful lawyer family of Murdaughs covers things up. They make it go away to avoid embarrassment. Then it comes time for Paul Murdaugh to face his actions, and it's because his friend Mallory has perished due to his negligence.
Yeah.
No matter how hard his father Alex or grandfather Randolph try, this is a situation that won't just go away.
It won't go away.
And what the hell is Alex's part in the death of Paul, his son, and Maggie, his wife?
I don't even know.
Okay.
I mean, I'm coming in blind here.
Okay.
And so I'm literally playing the part of the brand new watcher of this. And it's very interesting because most of the time when we do the podcast, we've gone further. We know a little bit more. This one is going to be unique, y'all, because everything Christy brings up today, I'm really still in that beginning.
Yeah, what is happening here?
Okay, but I had a lot of feels.
Okay.
So I had a lot of feels about their freedom. And I had a lot of feels about how they would talk about being included in the family and how all of the parents, despite their freedom, had obviously spent time with all these kids in their house. they knew things about the kids, the group of friends.
Sure. Yeah,
And-
like their parents, like Morgan's parents.
Right? Like they were the only ones who weren't more involved, but they still knew like, well, Paul always kept this in his pocket. They say flippantly. And I'm like, this is a generation before COVID.
Right.
I'm like, our kids actually had a complete pause in this amount of community, which usually doesn't end up in murder.
Right.
So notwithstanding the fact that this does, but like in general, like I had like this little bit of,
yeah,
that's like the whole like experience that like there's a whole generation of people that don't get to experience this kind of freedom where they just end up at each other parents' houses and the parents all kind of know at the kids. And it was really weird to see this on the screen and then be connected to like murder.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know how I feel about all of this.
I feel great about all of it, honestly.
I don't feel good about anything.
No. Okay, well, since we didn't talk about cast, and last time we kind of enjoyed the not quite a review of Megan, where somebody had they told us their thoughts while they were watching it. I wrote down thoughts I had while I was watching this.
Yes, Christy.
I had watched it back when it first came out, but it's almost like coming into it fresh because
I'm so glad you did this.
So I did this.
It's Christy's real-time thoughts.
All right. So Paul said, "This is my boat, and I know the river." When somebody tried to take his keys, and I'm like, "This is the thing that every drunk person says when you try and take their keys away."
Yeah. And everybody's like, we've all driven your boat, and we all know this river.
Yeah, but see, we'll get there. Hampton County, South Carolina is a place that you only go if you're from there. I'm like, this is the worst tourism campaign ever.
Especially now.
I mean, especially now. Drunk Paul gives life advice. Get an SC Wahoo Series boat. I'm like, better yet, make friends with somebody who has one.
I mean,
and then you don't have to deal with all of it.
And that's not the boat I would recommend either.
Well, we'll get there. We'll talk about the boat later. So Alex and Maggie Murdaugh had two sons. Buster, whom Maggie doted on because he's the oldest and because he was going to college. And Paul, who was a little more isolated from his parents, perhaps because he was not following a higher education path.
Right.
But it made me wonder, is Buster like Prince William and Paul like Prince Harry? Is Paul the spare?
Oh my God, he's the spare.
He's the spare.
In that family. And you know what? That mentality messed him up.
Big time.
Thankfully, Harry's not so messed up.
I mean, yes.
He's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But you're right. He is. Paul is totally the spare, and he's treated like the spare. So, no wonder.
So sad.
But also his eyes.
Oh, I know.
They're not wrong.
No.
The eyes are a chasm of like. Do you see what I'm doing? I can't even
neglect almost.
Yes.
And feeling like he's not enough. I mean, that's what I read when I see that emptiness there.
It's an emptiness.
There's an emptiness that's either sort of like that innate inborn evil, but I don't really think that that's how he was. I mean, they liked him well enough.
Yeah, he had a personality. Well, and that whole Timmy thing. We got to get there. Okay.
We'll get there to that. So Morgan said she knew Paul was trouble. And I'm like, girl, love yourself more. Love yourself more.
I knew you were trouble when you walked in. Taylor has a song about this, y'all.
So Morgan told about a car crash after a Christmas party where Paul insisted on driving despite being drunk. And there were guns and beer cans everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, her parents seemed like very nice people.
Yeah.
But if that were my kid, that would be the last time they were ever in a car with that person.
Do you think that the parents knew about it in real time, though? I don't think so. I think all this came out later.
I think they must not have known.
I think so.
Because, I mean, she was hiding a lot.
I think she was.
Yeah.
And I think they grew out of that, and that's why they're able to talk
Sure.
about it now with their parents around.
Yeah.
I just think that, like, at the time, definitely
I mean,
not.
they must not have known, because if it had been my kid, I'd have been like, that is the end of it.
Well, because they obviously didn't know that he was, like, abusing her either.
Right.
I mean,
They must not have.
I don't think so.
No. So Mallory had to ask her brand new boyfriend for permission to go to the Low Country tradition of an oyster roast when the weather was chilly. Holy patriarchy, Batman.
Yeah, it's very common.
I know it is, and it sucks. It's bad.
It's like, it's hard to watch it.
I mean, it is, because I'm like, love yourself more, girl.
I've been there, though.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll
Like,
get there.
it's equally familiar and equally disgusting.
Right. And then Paul and Connor insisted after that oyster roast to go to a bar to get a drink. Yeah. So they had been drinking, and then they insisted on going to a bar to get a drink. So I'm like, so if you're rich, they'll just serve underage people?
Yeah, they were underage, right?
Yes. They were like 19. The oldest was maybe 20.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, of course they do.
Like,
it's the Murdaugh. I mean,
right.
And it's backcountry.
Yeah.
And I mean, okay, apart from this, they should not have been drinking, but I do have like opinions about this whole age 21 thing anyways. But nevertheless, it's still the law.
Right.
And it just shows they were above law.
Yep. So Anthony, Mallory's new boyfriend, mostly seems very, very sympathetic.
Yeah.
I do feel very, very bad for him, because this was a new relationship, but they had both kind of wanted it for a long time. And then they finally got together, and they were very smitten with one another. I felt a lot for him right up until he told Morgan, you know what's crazy? Your father not making enough money to support your family, because Morgan's mom worked.
It was Anthony that said that?
Yes. Because I was like, ran it back to watch it again. I'm like,
oh my God.
And I was like, patriarchy to the left of them, patriarchy to the right.
I'm floored. I think I must have automatically just assumed that was Paul.
No, it was Anthony who said that.
Why did he say that? I don't remember.
I'm trying to remember.
Because I'm floored. You're right. Now that you were recalling it, I'm like, oh, but I think it wouldn't have been Anthony.
And I think she was trying to tell him, this is crazy. We shouldn't be out here doing this. I think that's what was going, like, this is crazy. Why are we
following Paul?
Yeah. Why are we doing this? And then of course, Paul is like,
and he said
calling
this
her
awful
names
thing.
and hits her and stuff like that. And, Anthony's like, he knew he shouldn't get on the boat.
Anthony's the one who said it. He wasn't saying that Paul said it.
No.
Oh my God.
He said it. Morgan said that he said it.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, holy patriarchy.
I'm going to oh my gosh. Yeah, no, and it's off. That's awful.
It is awful. I'm like, I'm sorry. Do you know for sure that her mom's working because they can't afford for her not to work?
Her mom had a career.
Right. She had a job that she liked.
Yeah.
And so what if her family didn't make quite as much money? It was a whole...
Oh my gosh. Oh, ew.
And then the other thing that I noticed. So the father, his name is spelled Alex. He goes by his middle name, Robert Alexander Murdaugh.
Right.
Not everybody, but some people pronounced it Alec instead of Alex.
Yeah.
And then Murdaugh is spelled Murdough.
Right. Murdaugh.
But most people, not everybody, a lot of people said Murdoch. And I'm like,
where is this coming from?
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't understand.
I guess, Murdaugh, with that ending, I don't know what like
I don't know
etymology of it, but maybe it shouldn't be a C like a C, but more of a like a Murdaugh. Yeah.
But
maybe
it's just a little lazy. I don't know. But they also say, I don't know if it's just like the area or whatever, but I'm like,
yeah, that's interesting.
Can you pick how you're going to say it?
I wondered about that too, because I think I was surprised that it was spelled the way it was.
Right.
Because I think I thought it was spelled with something at the end.
ALEC.
But then I think I assumed it was like a German or something language where it was like, oh, we're just being lazy instead of doing the actual sound. We're just putting a C at the end.
Yeah.
But the Alec thing, you're right.
Yeah, that's weird. And I'm just like, I'm going to call him Alex.
Alex.
Because don't care about. As far as I'm concerned, you know,
Yeah.
jackhole is just as good a pronunciation for ALEX in this case.
Well played.
We won't see a lot of that in this episode.
No.
Next episode, we'll see a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, we will.
All right. So what is the Low Country? I was like, okay, Low Country. They talked about this. So I'm trying to figure out, like, what does that mean? So Southern Living explained it to us. Basically, it's literally the southern part of South Carolina. All right. So Beaufort, Jasper, Colton, Hampton. These are the counties that make up the low country. It is also literally low land, saltwater marshlands, lots of rivers. It's got the Atlantic on one side, the Savannah River on the other. So that's literally low. It's also south in the state.
Right.
So.
Yep. Which makes it so beautiful.
Right. I mean,
really.
Spanish moss, and you've got the houses that are raised up high, and then they have some that have the really big porches.
It's gorgeous. Salt life.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, exactly. So we saw both Morgan and Mallory in really controlling relationships, and everybody was sort of controlled by Paul.
Yes.
So, but HuffPost would warn us not to be too quick to judge these people in controlling relationships, because it's not really about them. It's not really about you much of the time when you're in a controlling relationship. So we tend to believe that people in abusive relationships end up there because that's how they grew up and that's what they know. Yeah. And that's sometimes the case, but not always, or else, you know, we would like grow out of that eventually.
Yeah. Like that's like one of those logic things,
right?
You know, not all, not all fruit or bananas,
right?
Kind of situations.
Right. Exactly. Often it can happen because it happens really gradually. Like, so they don't get control. They're not controlling at first.
No.
But they get controlling later. It can take time for somebody who is a controlling person to become controlling in that relationship. So not only are they hiding it at first, but it takes a level of commitment that they feel about the relationship before they start doing that. And particularly women can find a certain level of jealousy as attractive.
Yeah. I mean, we are all obsessed with you.
That's right.
I mean, this is when where it comes from.
You feel like, oh, he just loves me so much.
Right.
You know, unfortunately, it's not about you, honey.
It's not. And that's what's so sad.
It is about them being insecure, them having a controlling nature, them wanting the power and to control the world around them.
Yep.
It's not about you.
It's not. And when that reality hits, it's very sad. I think about like in Truman Show when he's on the boat and then all of a sudden the shadow pops up and he rams into the side of his world.
Yeah.
And that's what it's like when you realize that the control is not about you.
Right.
That it's not because they love you.
Yeah, it's not.
It's like everything's
I mean, they may love you, but that's not why they're controlling.
Exactly. And but because they're doing that, they are literally ruining the love.
Right. Yes.
So your world just all of a sudden you just cram into the side of your world that you've built and have to walk up the stairs and walk out.
That's right.
Or throw somebody else out the stairs and walk out.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I digress.
I get it. All right. So I am remiss. Since we came back from our summertime break, I have not done the thing that I'm supposed to be doing where I'm supposed to have the resources. Now, to be fair, I don't know what resources I would give you for, you know, a German assassin.
No, I don't know.
Or being caught in a German prison.
No.
In Germany. I don't know what I can tell you if you're being surveilled from a drone by the military. I can't help you with that. I'm really sorry. And if you're being attacked by a autonomous android who's really, really smart, I can't help you with that either.
We can't help you with that either. But you know what? Hey, we do a good job, I think, overall of being able to pull these in when it's absolutely necessary or not. when it's appropriate.
Right.
But I think, we've had a few episodes where that just didn't apply.
It didn't apply. I kind of missed. I try and make something up if I can.
Yeah,
but this episode,
yes.
boy, there's a lot of people who really needed help.
Oh, for sure.
So I have a couple of resources to kind of make up.
Okay.
So Paul could have used some assistance from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. They have a helpline that you can call, 1-800-662-HELP, 1-800-662-3457. All right. It's confidential, 24 hours, free, 365. If you're in a situation where you're abusing a substance, or a family member, if you're living with somebody who is abusing, they have help for you. They can give you local treatment facilities, support groups, community-based information, not just for the person suffering from their substance abuse, but for you as a person who loves them, either ways for you to get out if it's a dangerous situation for you, or how to deal with it.
Yeah.
Hopefully they will also want to get help. If you can't call, they do have an online treatment locator at samhsa.gov, or you can text your zip code to 435-748, help for you.
Okay.
And they will text you the information.
Okay, good.
If you are in an abusive situation, the hotline.org can help you. They can do online chat. You can call with them, 1-800-799-SAFE, 1-800-799-7233. They can help you. They can help you find a way out.
Good. Awesome.
Yeah.
We'll post all that, of course,
Yes,
so that
of
you have
course.
links to it if you should need to go back and visit that.
Absolutely. And then, it's a small town. There's a lot of people there, but it's still a small town.
It is.
Is really like a small place. You only go there if you live there.
Yeah.
Or if you used to live there. So you think small town, still we think of small town and we think, oh, quaint, simpler way of life. Turns out the research doesn't support that.
Oh.
Psychology Today. Now, this is from 2016, but I think it still applies. By almost every measure of mental health, the countryside now does worse than the big city, and the amount of pathology increases as you go from metropolis to suburb to small town.
Wow. That's interesting.
So they found that the rates of opioid use in rural areas was twice that of urban big city. And it used to be, you thought, oh, community. I think as these communities sort of, you don't have the situation where you can't find community in a big city anymore.
Well, that's true.
I think that there's maybe more opportunity for community, more opportunity to have a variety of communities, or if you find a community and it's toxic, you're not stuck in it.
Right.
So that's kind of a benefit of the big city. Now, the small town, you can have that community. That's great. But if you don't fit in for whatever reason, you don't have the right amount of money or whatever, then it can be harder if you have a falling out with your community in a small town. You don't have any other community to fall into.
Well, and like the digital revolution. I mean, because that left small towns behind, because what was left in the small towns is generally harder labor, industrial revolution labor, which meant more injuries, which is why opioid companies targeted these smaller town doctors, because you had more people who were in chronic pain and of need. So instead of sending actual fully sourced resources, they just sent pills.
Right.
And so then the addiction rose up, and then you see a generational effect over that. But, the opportunity is lower now because the digital. But now that with the Internet of Things kind of spreading back out, I do wonder like how small towns might be faring, because now with digital revolution being able to be anywhere, now there's like opportunity to decide, okay, we can build these resources in these small towns because we have access to still participate in the economy. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. And they gave some possibilities of why this might be. Part of that might be that you have your highly motivated, bright kids who live in small towns, they tend to move away to go to college. And so that's leaving kids who are marginalized or dissatisfied or, don't have the capability to attend a higher education, and that leaves them ripe for this sort of drug abuse community. This was interesting. They used to think that cities had something about them that was toxic in a way that caused people to be mentally ill. And they said it's possible that there might be something about small town life that is similarly happening now that, we have a more generally exciting life. Now we can see a lot more. And so the monotony of a life in a small town can really be soul destroying when you know there's so much more out there.
Yeah, that's
it's like you're happier. I mean, they may have been happier 50 years ago in the small town because they just didn't know what else was out there.
Maybe. That's interesting.
That might be part of it. I mean,
that's an interesting thought exercise.
Yeah. It may not really have anything to do with it, but it was a thought that they floated.
Well, that is really interesting because there are definitely days where I'm like, ugh, a simpler. I'm all about the more simple in some ways, right? But sometimes you're just trading one problem for another because that one feels like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Grass is greener situation.
Yes.
Maybe.
Exactly. All right. We're going to take a real quick break. And when we come back, we'll have Is It True? Psychology Break in Real Life.
So here's how it works. Christy wrecks her search history. Hey, an essay. We promise it's nothing more nefarious than a podcast. To find out what's true, some of the psychological motivations behind the characters' actions, and real-life applications that relate to our topic. I have no idea what Christy decided to look up. Could be the same thing that captured my curiosity or something I never thought of.
Is it true? Okay, so it's weird. It's weird doing an Is It True?
Yeah, because obviously it's true.
I mean, it's insofar as that the people who are telling it are honest.
Yeah.
Which I believe them.
Right.
I don't have any reason to doubt them.
But we're not like evaluating the creative producing of a situation to see like what they kind of got right and wrong because it's people telling their experience.
Right. Exactly. So this is really more like a quick understand the area.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hit me.
All right. So a solicitor in South Carolina is basically the district attorney in other places.
Yes.
So I was like, okay. So the 14th Circuit is the chief prosecuting agency for a 5-county area, and it's the only 5-county circuit in South Carolina.
Okay.
So it is the largest one.
The largest one.
They prosecute about 5,000 cases a year.
Okay.
So it's big. So the office is led by a solicitor who is an elected official. Okay. Solicitor Duffy Stone is currently there.
Okay.
He was appointed in 2006 by the governor.
Okay.
And then has won re-election every 4 years since then. The latest one being in 2020.
Okay.
Prior to Duffy Stone being the solicitor, the office was created in 1920.
Okay.
And literally a Murdaugh was in the position from 1920 until 2006. Wow. So
remind me what years this story is that we're taking. This was 2019. That Mallory went missing.
Right. Yes.
So this is still like the Murdaughs are still like the kings, really, but not necessarily in the position directly.
But yes, but they still held a lot of clout.
They do.
Now they basically did both sides of the.
Yeah. I was floored.
They were prosecuting and defending.
I was floored by that.
Yeah.
That somehow they were, I mean.
And basically that's why they stopped in 2006 was that it wasn't because the Murdaugh III, or Rudolph Murdaugh III, retired. He didn't. It was literally like the governor is like,
this
Yeah,
is
we
ridiculous.
can't do this anymore. You're doing both sides of this. We can't do this anymore. And so that's why he appointed Duffy Stone.
I mean, it's crazy because like the comment was they are the law. Mm-hmm. They are the law in that town. It was like, oh my gosh, this is weird to think about.
Yes. So I was like, okay, now I understand that. Mm-hmm. It's messed up in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for real.
Less messed up now. They are elected. He did have to get elected. He had to be likable enough and for whatever to be elected every time these people.
But you know, okay.
The law firm started by the Murdaugh Patriarch was over 100 years old. We'll talk more about why I say was, because technically it still exists.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
Okay.
So it was founded in 1910, and they did have a big whole celebration in 2010 because...
of course, 100 years.
Exactly. And there's been a Murdaugh practicing there. 4 generations of Murdaughs.
That's pretty cool.
Had practiced there. I mean, pretty cool. And they did some decent stuff. Like there was, in 1989, they represented farmers from Florida to Maryland in a suit against China because there was some diseased hybrid watermelon seeds.
Oh.
And it was a problem. They weren't growing the way they were supposed to because there was this disease. And what came of that? Well, these farmers got compensation, and they now do DNA tests on these seeds that come from other countries to make sure that they
are what they are.
Yeah, that they're not diseased in some way so that they grow like they're expected to grow.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool. There's a whole thing with railroads. Which is a bone of contention I don't think we're going to get into at all when we talk about this, but it is an interesting read, but is a lot. We could talk just about that for an entire episode easily. But they sued the railroad a bunch of times and have been able to get the railroads to improve their crossings.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's such a long history.
Yeah.
And we're looking at this very like snapshot of one generation. Really? I mean, ish.
There's all the Randolphs. Did I say Rudolph earlier? I meant Randolph. All the Randolphs.
Okay.
The previous older generations.
I'm
There's
sure
been a
there
whole
was
lot of covering up of stuff.
Oh, I'm sure there is. But I'm just saying that, like, I don't know what the percentage of, but they've done a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And that,
so some of it's good.
There's got to be, some of it's good. Some of it's there. Some of it's just, ignorance and,
Sure.
So I don't know. It's very interesting to look at family businesses.
Yeah, it is interesting. All right. So Paul said Happiness was a SC Wahoo series boat. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, that's not really what it sounds like because the South Carolina Wahoo series is a fishing tournament.
Yeah.
And
I know exactly what he was talking about.
Understood.
That's why I was like, that's not the boat I would choose.
So it's basically any fancy boat that might be in this particular fishing tournament.
It's a fishing boat. Right.
Yeah.
Probably a center console with an upper deck. I mean, all the bells and whistles for a fishing boat, which I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there was a Wahoo fiberglass hull recreational boat that was made from 1985 to 1985 to 1996. So there was a Wahoo brand of boats, which I kind of remembered. But I thought they had been around way longer and were still kind of around because I think I've seen them at lakes and stuff. No, because Wahoo was bought out in 1996 by Brunswick. And they wanted to incorporate the hulls into their design, which they did into their Robolo line.
Okay.
And then the Robolo line still being made by Marine Products Corporation.
Okay.
All these places with their like boring ass names.
I mean, it's so like boring. I mean, some of the recreational boats, I mean, we had one, it was a skiff.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily, it wasn't the same style. It was a Carolina skiff though.
Okay.
So, and it was lovely. It was a center console.
Yeah.
Definitely made for like that hybrid recreational fishing thing.
Yeah. Like you could
Yeah.
fish, but you could also kind of go fast in it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Super fast or just chill.
Yeah.
And skiff has a high side. So we had little kids at the time. Our kids were little. So, it was taller. So it
Okay.
wasn't as easy to like fall
out.
overboard.
Yeah. The kids talked about a watermelon festival.
Yes.
Where Alex reportedly was known to give the teens liquor at a very young age.
A very young age.
13, 14.
Yeah.
But it's a real
There's
event.
country songs about this.
I mean,
Yeah.
yes, they have a parade that has never been rained out.
I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Isn't that bananas?
Knock on wood.
Yeah. A street dance, food vendors, a fishing contest that is supposed to be alcohol free.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They have a battle of the towns that's been happening for almost 40 years
Oh my
where they
goodness.
have wacky races and off the wall competitions. So they have like a baby crawl.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
All
then
the
they
cute
but they
little
come up,
town things.
I mean,
see, this is the thing people
this
do
sounds
miss.
fun. Right. Yes.
Right? People do miss this kind of thing. Like
Right.
that feeling of being on a team.
Yeah.
That being in a small town that's run well and and among other small towns, there is this feeling of being on your team.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's the thing that people miss about like the small town life.
Oh, you know what? Just go support your local high school. And,
Yeah.
football's great. Maybe also go support like volleyball.
Yeah.
A girls' sport that doesn't get a lot of people there. To
Right.
like go watch the basketball teams.
Yeah.
You
But I'm
know?
not opposed to like being in a part of your small town,
Right, yeah.
your town stuff. Like,
Oh, yeah.
But I kind of get that feeling though, that
Right.
it's about that same mentality of like being, rooting for your team
Right.
and being on the team.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's a watermelon judging contest. Of course.
And there's definitely watermelons that have been carved out, then
Oh,
had
yes.
something else poured into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Those aren't officially sanctioned. I don't
No, I don't think so. But there's probably deep fried Oreos somewhere.
Oh, yeah. It's like the state fair, but on a smaller scale.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. The onions, right? The potatoes.
I could go for some fried onions.
Oh
right
yeah,
now.
some fried onions, a big fried potato. They do the same thing with the potato, and it's like amazing.
yeah.
Some vinegar, salt and vinegar on it. Woohoo! See, there's something to love. There's something to love.
That's right. All of the sources that we use to inform our discussion here on Killer Fun Podcast can be found on our social media. Join us on Facebook at Killer Fun Podcast, exploring the intersection of crime and entertainment. You can find us on Twitter at Killer Fun Pod, or you can send us an email at killerfunpodcast@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to share a link to whatever information you're looking for. We love to hear from you. You might learn a little something too. Psychology break.
No, speaking of.
Speaking of. All right. So Mallory made both of her close friends by giving them compliments.
I know.
It was
I
the sweetest thing. We've been best friends since she walked up to me in like either kindergarten or preschool
something?
and told me I was pretty.
I mean, it's so cute.
Mallory walked up to me and told me she liked my shoes and we were friends forever.
Yeah.
I'm
I
like,
mean, it's so wholesome.
it's so sweet. And it really is, according to Sweetie High, the easiest way to make friends.
It's true.
It's easy. You're walking around, you're looking at somebody and you're like, that color is perfect on that person. Their hair is cool. They have nice shoes.
Yeah.
Their bag is delightful.
Yeah.
You're thinking it. Say it out loud. Say it out loud.
Yes. Say it.
It can strike up a conversation. It may not, and that is also fine. But it may, they'll be like, oh, you know what? I got this bag at such and such a place. And they'll be like, oh, I know that place, or I've never heard of that place. And then you know, you end up just, this is how you make friends.
This is how you talk,
make
yeah.
friends as an adult.
It's true. It works in preschool and it works as an adult.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. We just forget to do it once we're adults.
We get nervous.
Yes. It builds other people up. It takes 10 nice things being said to somebody to help them get over one mean thing.
Yeah.
So to like be one of those 10
Yeah.
nice things. You may get a compliment back, which always feels good. And it makes you more positive overall. If you're looking for something to compliment people on, you're looking for good things.
Yeah, exactly.
So it can make you feel more positive, and it makes people want to be around you.
Yeah.
When if you like meet somebody because you gave them a compliment, they always feel, even if they don't remember the compliment, they always feel a little warmer towards
That's
you.
right. It's so true.
This is backed up by science. Cornell University did some psychology of compliments. They would have volunteers as part of their study, and they would send them out to go give people compliments.
Okay.
And so they asked them some questions ahead of time, and then they would go out and give them a compliment and say, okay, now I need you to fill out this little form. So they'd hand them a little form in an envelope, and then they would fill it out and put it in a sealed envelope so the person never saw their own, like how the person responded to their compliment. Because they asked them beforehand and then they could compare the results after, they found that people who were compliment givers vastly underestimated how good it made people feel.
Oh.
They were way more flattered and way more happy to get the compliment than the compliment giver thought that they would.
Oh, that's sweet.
And that they, in a different study, they asked, do people avoid giving compliments because they're afraid of making somebody feel awkward?
Okay.
Okay. So in that study, they found, people don't typically feel very awkward. They vastly overestimate how awkward getting a compliment makes people feel. It mostly just makes them feel very, very happy.
Right.
And if you have a high level of anxiety already, you're much more likely to think that you giving somebody else a compliment is going to be an uncomfortable situation for them. It is not.
It is not generally.
No.
Yeah.
No. Very few people feel uncomfortable being given a compliment. Just compliment the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just do the thing.
Yeah. And giving compliments makes you feel better. It like literally improves your mood. It makes you feel better about yourself. Just do it.
Just do it. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's free.
Yeah. So Paul was a troubled kid who abused alcohol. Let's talk about alcohol and mental health for a minute.
Oh my goodness.
All right. We're going to touch on it.
Yeah, because I'm like, that's a Pandora's box.
Yeah, we're not going to get that deep into it, but alcohol does slow down how your brain processes information, and it can make it difficult to understand the consequences of your actions. I think we saw a lot of this with Paul while he was drinking, maybe a lot of it with all of them.
I mean, maybe a lot,
They had all been drinking. They knew they shouldn't get on the boat, but they couldn't make the connection to, you know what, I'm going to go call my parents and deal with the consequences later rather than get on this boat with this drunk guy.
Right. Yeah, no, they knew it was wrong, but.
Some people abuse alcohol to self-medicate.
Right. That's a very common use.
Yes. When they have a mental illness, often severe, they'll self-medicate. They may self-medicate with things other than alcohol as well. But that's part of it. But there's also depression is heavily linked to heavy drinking. And often it's not a bi-directional. It seems like a depressed person is going to drink more. No, if you're using a lot of alcohol and abusing it, you're causing the depression. But they find that many people, when they stop abusing alcohol, several weeks later, their depression starts to lift.
Yeah.
Because alcohol is a depressant.
Yeah.
It can be causing the issues that you're
definitely
having.
For sure.
And, people will drink to reduce their anxiety. It is a very short-term fix. So, and having a hangover can make your anxiety much worse.
Yeah.
But if you or somebody you love is heavily dependent on alcohol, you really need to visit a medical professional because just stopping drinking can be very dangerous.
It can be very dangerous.
So especially if they've been a heavy drinker for a long time. This is why there's treatment programs.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alcohol, of course, affects our emotions. We saw that in Paul quite a lot.
Yeah, they called him Timmy.
Yeah, well, we're going to get there in just a minute. First, we're going to talk about People abuse alcohol because they want to mask emotions like sadness, anger, embarrassment, disappointment. Embarrassment, disappointment are things I think that Paul was trying to run away from.
Maybe so.
A little bit. But it's not necessarily true that your true feelings come out when you're drunk.
Not necessarily.
I mean,
this idea that it's like a truth serum is a little like, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, in a bit, because you have lowered inhibition, but you also have impaired judgment.
Right.
And that makes it not a truth-telling serum, that your drunk words are not sober thoughts. This is, no, not necessarily. But long-term alcohol use can increase your stress levels, aggressive behavior, impair your memory. These are all things. But then you mentioned Timmy.
I mentioned Timmy.
So alcohol can affect your personality. It impacts your frontal lobe, which is very much associated with your personality and your executive functioning. It affects those neurotransmitters that are in there. They're not working like they're supposed to. If you're drinking heavily, when you are abusing alcohol heavily, especially, it can happen even if you're just having a small amount of alcohol. You can have some of these emotions, but particularly if you're a heavy user of alcohol, which Paul was, anger, impulsivity, lowered inhibitions, sensation-seeking behaviors. I think that's part of what we were seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sadness. These are things that can be very overblown. These are the kinds of, there's also, for some people, euphoria, extroversion,
Right.
A feeling of relaxing. It didn't seem like Paul was getting those things.
No. Well, I mean, there's like kind of that old adage that like, are you a happy drunk? Or are you
are
an
you
angry
mean
drunk?
drunk?
Or are you whatever, and it's kind of not wrong.
Right.
People react differently, and people react differently based on like why they're seeking out the drink.
Sure.
And which direction it's going. But yeah, definitely it didn't sit well with Paul.
No.
And people knew that he was not okay when he was drunk, but nobody seemed to be able to. It's weird that his influence as an individual of being like, I don't know, just the dominant personality, sort of the one that's like, we can't upset him because he gets out of control. So he's controlling everybody else because they're all walking on eggshells. And when he's drunk, he's obviously unaware of all of that.
Right.
And yet they still react to him that same way.
Right.
And it's very interesting.
I feel really bad for Paul in a lot of ways. He made a lot of really poor decisions, but
for sure.
I do feel
I do feel bad for him. I feel bad for his friends.
Yeah.
I feel bad for all of them because I know they were young and they kind of understood that it was wrong, but they didn't quite understand the consequences.
Because they hadn't really. No, I mean, if Paul had gotten arrested after that Christmas party,
maybe
for wrecking his car when he was drunk.
Yep.
Maybe they could have got him into treatment and we wouldn't have this show.
Yeah. I mean, maybe so.
I mean, we can't know that for sure.
We don't know.
But,
we don't know.
I mean, it's definitely, there's a timeline somewhere.
There is.
Where somebody decided it was better to help Paul get treatment than it is to quote unquote save face.
Right.
That this isn't an embarrassment. It's just a kid who's troubled.
Yeah. Well, and I think his friends just knew that.
Yeah.
His personality still made it so they had to walk on eggshells because they wanted to keep the peace.
Right.
But I think his friends knew that.
Yeah.
His friends weren't the ones trying to cover things up.
No.
They, you know what I mean? That wasn't them.
Morgan called 911 and they were mad.
Yeah.
Yeah. She wasn't trying to cover it up.
No. And they called for help when the boat crashed. I mean, they weren't trying to cover things up.
Yeah. All right. Real life.
Real life.
All right. So we talked about alcohol abuse quite a lot.
Yes, we did.
But what should parents know about providing children with alcohol? I thought this was really interesting
because I might have opinions about this one too.
So providing alcohol for underage youth, what messages should we be sending parents? This is in the National Institute of Health. They've done studies where to understand provision, so where a parent is providing alcohol to the children. So what they actually found was that providing adolescents with alcohol. So you hear a lot of parents who say, well, I'd rather them drink at home. I want them to be safe.
Right.
I'm going to provide them with alcohol that I know is safe.
Right.
It actually ends up that results in increased heavy episodic drinking and higher rates of alcohol-related problems.
You know, I'm going to ask questions about this. I'm gonna have to ask questions.
Okay. I don't know if I'll have the answers, but I'll try.
All right. So here's my thing. I hear that and I get it. It's not like I don't think that the study showed that. My question is, A, what kind of sample was it?
Yeah, I don't know.
What culture was it?
Right.
Did they determine that this sample were individuals who had alcohol, a history of alcohol? And what was the motivation? Because the motivation of a parent saying, I want them to learn at home how to drink responsibly is not the same thing as I know my kid is a binger, so I'm just going to do it here.
Okay.
Right. In that case, they didn't cause worse. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Yes.
Like, so what did it say that they caused it or there was a correlation?
I think that there was a correlation.
See, and that's not cause.
No, but they did have here at the end of the article that there's little research evidence to support the idea that you can teach children how to drink responsibly when they're that young.
How young?
It didn't say.
See, this is my issue with this right now.
Well, that's because I'm reading a summary of it and I don't.
I know, but I'm going to dig in. You know me. I'm going to dig in. That's what we do here.
Right.
So like, I'm going to dig into because I'm like, this sounds like an opinion driven sort of like summary of the articles, which I don't discount the opinion. I'm just saying it might be one of a broader perspective. Okay. Does that make sense?
Let me see what is in here and see if I can. They do cite a bunch of studies in their assessments here. So adolescent alcohol use is a health risk associated with alcohol poisoning, high-risk sexual behavior, and accidental injury. So kids are basically based on 3 or 4 studies that they looked at for this.
Right.
They're more likely to make poor choices.
Right.
They found that kids who were able to get the alcohol at home tended to have a early onset alcohol use is associated with a greater likelihood of alcohol use disorder during adolescence and later in life. So the earlier you start drinking, the more
that makes sense too.
It does make sense.
That's not where I have any qualms with. I think my qualms is how do we relate those correlations and directional correlations to the type of provision.
Okay.
What type of provision?
A survey of 13 to 18-year-olds, 1/3 of adolescents said it was easy to acquire alcohol from their consenting parents, and 25% had attended a party where parents consented to let adolescents drink. I think the point is when they're looking at this aggregate research, basically, is what they're doing here, is they're looking at a lot of studies and trying to understand what all of these studies, when you look at them together, mean. Is that the more that kids drink when they're younger,
of course,
the more problems they have. And if they can get it easily at home, which we saw, these children were like...
But these were not parents saying, I want to teach my kids to drink responsibly by doing it at home first, that's my qualm. I guess that's my issue is like, we're talking, what's the difference between parents who are irresponsible and allowing consenting to provide alcohol for their kids at home versus the parents who are like, I'm going to teach my children to are we saying that that's not possible for a parent to teach their kids?
I don't think so. But but I think the idea of providing your kid a lot of alcohol, having the rager at your own house so that you can be in charge of it is actually not teaching your kids to drink responsibly.
Binging? No, I wouldn't agree with that either.
Right.
I wouldn't agree with that either.
And I think that's what they're looking at, is saying that, we've got these kids who are like being provided alcohol, not just like on a special occasion, not champagne on New Year's Eve.
Right.
Not a glass of wine at Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever.
Right.
But who've been provided alcohol to drink at a party. Mom and dad bought a kegger because they want their kid at home.
And I think that's what I'm separating those two parents. You see what I'm saying?
But I think that's what they're finding is that these kids who are going to parties where a parent has provided the alcohol are finding worse outcomes because they're drinking more at a younger age and making poor decisions.
Agreed.
Rather than,
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah. I was digging into the operationalized language of the difference between parents who are irresponsibly providing bingers to say, I'm just going to have it at home because they're going to do it anyways, is not the same thing as the parents who are like, I'm going to teach my kid to drink at home and do it that way.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that that's really the same thing, right?
I think what they were finding in the research is that a lot of the kids who are doing this binge drinking are being provided it by an adult who should know better.
Right.
Yeah.
And I get it. There are parents out there who are like, they're going to do it anyways. I might as well keep them at home. I think that's where it's different.
Yeah.
The operationalizing is different. Like those are the parents who are trying to do something and they need to know that it's not helping.
Right.
Right. But I don't think we could lump it in with just the parents who are like, I'm going to allow them to drink at home, but I'm not providing like drunken kegs.
Right.
But I also don't hate it that there's certain parents out there who are like, okay, but I know they're going to do this. Let me take their keys. I get the impact. I get the desire behind it.
Right.
I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, the good news is that the younger kids like to drink less than they used to. So when
that's
you
true.
and I were in high school, I lived next door to a family who was very much of the mindset, boys will be boys. And if they're going to party, I want them to do it at my house. So I was next door to a whole lot of drunken parties.
Yeah.
And, by teenagers who were, just a little older than me. And I knew lots of people who drank. My college student hardly knows anybody who drinks.
Yeah. It's a different world.
It is.
But that's also why I asked about the sample.
Yeah.
Because this is a very unique problem in the U.S.
Yes.
This is a weird sample. That's what we call it in social science.
Most of these studies came from, looks like, between 2005, 2010.
Yeah. This is what we call a weird sample. I pulled it up to make sure I didn't screw up this acronym, but it's Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic.
Oh, okay.
That's a weird sample.
Okay.
And so many of these studies, it's so not generalizable to like the rest of the world.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So this is a U.S. problem.
If you were to look at other societies, you would find that kids drink a lot more at home.
Yes.
And it's not this.
Yeah, but they're not binging. They're not, there's this.
No, they're learning to drink responsibly at home, but they're probably drinking more than we would drink.
Right.
We tend to go polarized.
Yeah.
Whereas others tend to just do it maybe more often and moderately.
Sure.
And so like other cultures, the parents keeping them at home to have them have drinks doesn't result in the bingers.
Right.
Necessarily. That's why I ask about the sample, because it's so uniquely U.S.
You're right. It's weird.
It's weird.
There we go.
That's weird.
All right. So it's a wonder that there weren't more serious injuries the night of the boat crash, because that water was very cold, and cold water is very dangerous. So weather.gov. Body heat is lost 4 times faster in cold water than cold air. None of these kids were wearing life jackets, and they really should have been. Cold shock can be just as severe and dangerous in water temperatures between 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit as water at 35 degrees Fahrenheit.
Gosh.
Which I did not realize.
That's crazy.
So, if you're thrown into the water, you will start gasping and doing rapid breathing, and that can last for several minutes. And so that contributes to the I know it is. It's scary and awful.
I feel it as we talk about it. It's just awful.
Like, you go in and they start gasping, and that contributes to drowning. Especially if you're being thrown into the water unexpectedly. It's a panic. It's a shock. It's not only cold, but your fear and stress can impair your cognitive analysis of the situation. Your arms and legs will actually refuse to work like almost immediately upon entering the water. So it causes a physical incapacitation that is a problem. And so if you don't have a life jacket on, and it only gets worse the longer you're in the water. And hypothermia, these are all things. It's a wonder, not more.
That Mallory was the only one.
Really. So what can you do? Try and stay calm. Try and minimize your time in the water. If you can swim out, get out of the water as soon as you can. If you can climb up onto something, do that.
What does it say about shedding your clothes? All I can think of is a Bear Grylls episode.
I don't think so, because they want you to follow the help position, which is heat escape lessening position, which is basically the fetal position. Yeah. Pull your legs up, keep your arms to your side, be as close as you can. You would probably want to keep your clothes on because they're going to provide you a little more protection unless they're dragging you down. I mean, but that's a matter of can you get out.
Because once you're out, they're so cold.
Right. Yes. But
so do you maybe shed them or not?
Maybe once you're out, shedding them, but not in the water would probably not be helpful. But yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Did you ever watch Bear Grylls?
No.
Oh my God. There's an episode because he goes and what he does is he actually takes all his clothes off because he has to swim across this like cold river and he takes it off and he puts it in his dry bag and he does it like pretty much naked, and then he gets naked next and starts a fire.
Yeah.
And then
that makes sense.
Right.
But he was planning.
Oh yeah, of course he was planning. But that's why I was like, I wonder like in a situation like that, do you get out and take your clothes off so you can get them off and then get into the warm position, or
I don't know,
because they're so cold.
I think that the warm position is in the water. If you can't get out of the water,
not when you're out of the water.
How do you?
If you have a life jacket on, right?
Yeah,
that's
hopefully
what they're
you have a
saying.
life jacket on, or you have something you can hold on to
and try to curl
keep
up.
your arms as close
I'm
to your
thinking
body
like
as you
once
can.
you're out.
No, this is in the water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rich criminals are treated differently than poor criminals.
Yeah.
I mean, we know this.
Of course they are.
White collar crime, according to the FBI, is a cost of about $300 billion a year to the U.S. economy.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's so much money, and yet they hardly spend any time in jail. And yet you have disparities, like disparities in bail. So in July of 2015, Sandra Bland was pulled over. Now, her bail was only set at $5,000 for baloney reasons. It was a whole big thing. But her family had to come up with 10% of her $5,000 bail in order to be able to get her out. And days went by and they couldn't do it because they were a very economically disadvantaged family. And she committed suicide in her jail, in the jail cell. Do you not remember this?
No.
This was in Houston.
No, I don't remember this.
It was awful. It's really terrible. But that was an inordinate amount of money for that particular family. And yet, in October of 2001, also in Houston, Robert Durst was charged with the murder and dismemberment of his neighbor. They set his bail at $300,000, and because he's rich, he just paid it and got out, and then ran.
OMG. Yeah, no, the whole situation with bail, anyways. But
there's a whole thing.
It's terrible.
Cash bail is a whole
thing.
A different, yeah. I don't want to talk about it. This makes me mad. Discrepancies in sentencing.
Yeah.
So Paul Carter, God, this is awful. In 1997, he was 29 years old. 2 police officers searched his pockets. They found a bottle cap and a syringe in his pocket.
Okay.
The syringe was completely clean. The bottle cap had an amount of heroin in it too insignificant to weigh, according to the state prosecutors. They sentenced that guy to 10 years in prison. And then a prosecutor made a motion to reconsider his sentence, and they gave him life without parole.
What?
For an amount of heroin that couldn't be measured.
I mean, wow.
Yeah. Then you have Paul Manafort. Former campaign manager for a political person. He laundered $18 million.
Yep.
Took lots of bribes. His sentence was less than 4 years.
I mean, wow.
I mean, this is the difference between a rich guy and a poor guy.
Yep, that's it. That's it.
Sucks. And then difference in incarceration. So Cook County Jail is the largest prison in the U.S., has over 8,000 inmates. over 70% of them are Black, and a third of them suffer from psychological disorders, and it makes it basically the largest mental institution in the United States. They found in 2008 that that the inmates were not given their medication, that there was physical abuse from both inmates and guards, rampant. Not a single department of the jail met federal standards. On the other side, the Federal Correction Institute, Otisville, is a medium security prison, only has 700 inmates as opposed to 8,000 inmates in Cook County Jail. And that's where lawyers ask for white-collar criminals like Bernie Madoff to go. In 2012, it was America's cushiest prison. The most combative incident they've had was over an American Idol episode. They have bocce ball.
No, miss me with that.
I mean,
miss me with all of that.
So,
what do I need to do to get there?
I mean, be rich.
Oh, okay. Oh well.
I think we're more likely to end up in Cook County.
I think so.
The other one. So these draconian sentences for nonviolent crimes don't perform justice. They actually subvert justice.
Yeah.
And prison reform's needed.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, really, because what we need to do is reform people, not punish them.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some people who deserve punishment.
Right.
But
it's a complex situation, right?
It is, but ultimately, that doesn't make our society any better.
Right.
Finally.
Okay.
Dating outside of your socioeconomic class can be really eye-opening.
Oh.
So,
yeah.
This is a BuzzFeed. We end on something fun.
We do. But this was happening in the groups because Paul was so outside of their socioeconomic status above them that even the rich people weren't in that.
They weren't in the same level as he was. And yet Morgan was far below. Which is partly why she put up with the poor behavior.
And by far below, I don't really know what that meant. Like for her, like I don't know how strapped they were. I just know that they weren't.
I just get the idea that it was like they lived in a normal house.
Yeah, that's what I got too.
And not on a huge estate.
Yeah, that's kind of what I got out of it.
Yeah. So this guy, I dated a senator's daughter in high school. Everything was about keeping up appearances and we had to be careful where we went in public. Her parents offered to buy me nicer clothes to wear when we went to dinner. I married a rich woman. My wife is a gem, but the problem is that my mother-in-law's expectation and image are always the center of just about every single decision.
Yeah. Oh.
My wife's family has no concept of what a workday is. Workday, weekend, it's all the same. Must be nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we've seen this on the flip side too. You're never working, but you're always working. Right? Like, okay, well, you can go on vacation anytime, but you can also be on that call and everywhere.
Right.
And so like that disconnect that we saw in the study that you pulled out about the affluent pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird.
I'm married into a rich family and it's eye-opening. I grew up not poor, but far from wealthy. We had a baby last year and my husband's grandma bought a house for us in cash.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not mad about it.
I mean, I wouldn't be mad about it, but... And then the last one, I learned that a lot of ultra wealthy people lack many basic skills like how to unclog a drain or how to hang a painting or change a filter. They'll shell out $100 to get a handyman to spend 2 hours doing something they could fix for themselves in 30 minutes and $15 at Home Depot. This is why I'm like, really, I don't hire more people because I'm just cheap. I'm like... I can do it. I'll take the time to watch the YouTube video. I'll watch the video and I'm like, ooh, yeah, no, that's out of my wheelhouse. Yeah. If I screw this up, it's going to be way more expensive. So I'm going to hire the professional to come and do this.
Sometimes it's about time. I want to get this done now.
Yes.
Now. I don't want to wait on somebody. I don't want to have to explain it to somebody else. I don't want to have to ask questions. Like my full-on introvert is like, get it done.
Yeah.
Like I want it done so I don't have to deal with it again. So I just do it. I just fix it.
Yes. Oh, yes. Like I don't want to talk to people.
I don't want to talk to anybody else. So I just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because even though I probably could have somebody else do it better.
Sometimes I just don't want anybody in my house.
Yeah. I just want it done. I don't want to have to wait.
That's right.
Or have somebody come over. Of course, I've had a lot of that lately because we just went through renovations. And so I'm so done with anything.
Yeah.
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 So
fine. I get it. I get it. All right. So next time, Murdaugh Month continues. So we're going to look at season 2, episode 1. So you have a little bit to watch.
Yes.
I think you'll get through it.
Oh, well, because there's only 3 episodes.
I know.
In each season. So it's like, it's totally doable. But
Yeah.
I was like, I full on stopped. Like, okay, I'm stopping here.
That's fine.
Yeah. I want it to be.
Yeah. Alex Murdaugh. We see him on the day that Paul and Maggie were murdered.
Mm-hmm. Done.
He's an SOB. That's all I'm going to say.
You close the book. Like, that's it.
That's all I'm going to say about that right now. Anyway, thanks so much for listening. We know you make a choice when you listen to us. Tell a friend, because it's way more fun when you can listen with a friend. Make that community. Build it. Even if it's around something weird like true crime.
Like us.
Until next time, be safe, be kind, and wash your hands.